Okay, is YouTube online? Grr. Wait, you can see me and hear me fine on YouTube. Is that right? Okay. If you guys can hear me on YouTube, let me know in the chat, please, because something weird is going on. Okay, I have people. Curtis M is hearing me. Mike is hearing me. So people on YouTube are saying they're hearing me. So let me see if I can figure out why this isn't working. On YouTube are saying they're hearing me. So let me. Ooh, now we're going to get some echo. Okay. So let's see. Let's try this again. Looks like it broke that stream. Let's go over there. Oops. Okay, try this link. Okay, that looks like it'll take care of YouTube. And now why isn't Twitch working? Okay, so you guys can see and hear me on YouTube now. Doesn't look like Twitch is working, so let's try to see if we can figure that one out here quick. Jump over to, please. All right. Yep, Twitch is still a no-go, so if everybody on Twitch could just jump over to the other side, that'd be awesome. And that will solve that problem. All right, I don't want to worry about that at this point. So let's jump gears. Evening, everyone. It's been a long time. Can't have a stream without technical difficulties, can we? Welcome. Hope everyone is surviving 2021. On my left here, this is the original Artillery X1 with a lot of modifications that have happened to it over the year, and I'll point those out as we go through it. This is the new X2. So what I want to do is try to walk you through all of the changes that Artillery has done between the two, just pointing those out, and then we'll kind of maybe have a Q&A and see if I can answer any questions anybody has regarding the two. Also, if we have time, Ultistik sent over a magnetic sheet and a flex plate for this guy. So depending on how we're doing for time, maybe we'll try to put that on tonight. And let's see. Oh, there we go. We have next one printing right beside him. So thanks everyone. This is what Joel was teasing me about on Twitter. This is a 300 millimeter Bugman Tiki cup. It is big, and it will, I don't know, hold a lot of something. Joel's go bigger, and Joel went blue. So, is what it is. Sorry, Chris, you can't raid me now. I tried. So let's talk about the differences here. In fact, I have a list on my iPad, and I'm going to cheat by pulling that up so I don't miss any. This was sent over to me by the folks at Artillery, but I know what most of them are, and I just don't want to make sure I miss any. So that is here. So let's go through the list, and I'll show you on the front, and then we can maybe flip them around and I can show you on the back. Now, let's talk about the X1 first. My X1 has been modified over the years. As you can tell, I designed my own spool holder for it, which actually shortened the height up some and moved it forward. So the spool was actually out over the hot end. It was a little less tension, and it allowed it to actually fit on my shelf. Artillery has updated the spool holder on the X2, and instead of the bearings and allowing it to go back and forth, they've included these roller bars, which basically will fit almost any spool and keep it a lot more stable. So that is one simple but large improvement on this thing. Secondly, you'll notice I printed my own end caps here for this. That was a user improvement. Artillery has moved towards injection molding, and they've printed all new cover pieces here, and they've replaced the extruded top bar with an injection molded top bar similar to the Genius that was introduced originally on the Genius. I can't say if it's structurally more sound, but it adds some nice color to it. It doesn't seem to sacrifice anything. So I don't see any drawback to it. It's you guys can't see it, but it is reinforced inside here, and it is a very rigid piece of plastic. Thanks, Mike. Mike likes the orange. Oh, thank you, Liz. Canadian 149 for a hot dog. Thank you. So back over to this guy. As you can tell, my whole extruder cart is modified, so I'm not going to talk much about that. I've got an experimental hot end on here, as well as an E3D Hemera that's been upgraded, and the full filament mounting system. But I will point out the cables. I've replaced these cables probably about 10 or 15 times over the few years that I've had this, and that's been a known point of content with both users and streamers. Part of that has been, sorry if you can't see me, I'm trying to point to the printer here. Part of that has been, maybe this is a better connection, there's no locking mechanism and there's no strain relief on these cables. You also had to install them yourselves. So one improvement that they've made on the X2 here is all of these connection points now, they're still using the ribbon cables, but they're pre-installed. So the user doesn't have to put them in. There's a strain relief and a locking mechanism with a little clip here that snaps on and snaps off, which I don't want to take it off, but snaps on and snaps off. There's foam padding and it acts as a strain relief. As well as, if you can see, these are now socketed connections so that they lock in, so your cable can't pull out. They also did away with this original ribbon cable that goes in down here. And what they've replaced it with inside this little doohickle is the ribbon cable goes to what looks like a Nintendo cartridge. It's just a small circuit board about yay big, and there's a mating piece. So when you put the Z down onto it, that Z is going to mate up into that and have a much better, much more solid connection. The extruder cart otherwise is pretty much the same. It still has the plastic Titan clone and the Volcano style hot end. And let me pop over the chat. A taco would have been nice, Liz. Thank you. I could really go for one tonight. I'll cover, there's a lot of changes here on the X gantry as well, and I'll show you those to you when we flip it around. The bed is the same. The Y is the same. Printing platform is slightly taller on the X2. Same screen on the front. However, it has been replaced with a 32-bit control board inside. So it's running Marlin 2.0 flavor. They also now include a manual. But one nice thing is that this now has a universal power supply. So originally, depending on where you lived, you had to order a 110 or a 220 version of the X1. Now it is a single SKU, single model number for the X2, and there's a switch on the back of it that you can switch, like most printers, to go between 110 and 220. Andrew, I will, once we get to it, I'll move the X1 out of the way, and we can flip it over, take the bottom panel off, and take a look at the bottom inside. But I just want to hit all the differences first. And let's see, make sure I missed anything. Oh, also on the front, they are now including a leveling sensor. It is a pin-based leveling sensor similar to a BL Touch. It doesn't appear to be the exact same size, so it's not an exact clone of the BL Touch, but it appears to be very similar. Close enough that I would generally call it a cloned BL Touch, but it's not exactly the same. I would have preferred to see a genuine BL Touch there. They also added 3 wheels and on one side and 3 wheels on the other. So there's an even number of 3 wheels and 3 wheels on the Y versus 3 wheels, and I believe it's 2 wheels on this side. Nope, it's 3 and 3. Okay, so that was added maybe on the V4, the newer. So that hasn't changed. So everything else about the Y is the same. So let's rotate it, and I will show you the differences on the back. Oh, actually, I will point out one thing here if I can get it back far enough. There is a cable that pops out here that isn't used. I think Joel asked about this when he streamed. And this is for adding an additional Z end stop should you want to go back to adding a traditional end stop instead of the probe. So, any questions on the front before I flip it? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, the bed cable is very different, and I'll show you that from the back side, Andrew. All right, so let me flip the X1. Ooh, things are heavy. All right, so backside, as you can see, things look mostly the same, except the prominent things are, instead of the loose cable for the bed here that goes in, where I had added a strain relief to it, they've now come up with this very clever, it's a trough, like a little track here, and they've added a, it's not a ribbon cable, but it is a flat wire for the mains. It is still mains. It's not a 24-volt heat bed. It is still a mains heat bed, but that just goes in and out of that track just like that, and it moves nicely. They've also changed these brackets slightly for the Z motors. I think it just improves the alignment of the motor a little bit, but it's nothing substantial or nothing significant. And missed a Vader time and a freeze frame. Ah, nuts. And then on the back side, one of the biggest things that I think is really cool here, let me get these down. You'll notice that they changed the carriages here. The old ones were just bent aluminum or possibly steel. Let's find out. I don't recall. Yep, aluminum. What they've created now are these pieces that are cast. I believe the wording that they used was injection molded aluminum, but they're basically cast aluminum. So the wheels are here on this side, and then rather than for the inside wheel, the third wheel, rather than having to use a wrench on an eccentric nut, you have an Allen screw on here and here, and you basically tighten that and it moves it in and out. Artillery actually put up a little video on their website that shows that mechanism. It's pretty cool. I think that is going to, I mean, aside from being a little bit heavier, I think that might help improve the Z-wobble that some people have experienced with the original X1. Sorry, I can't read it. Someone's asking about the couplers. The couplers haven't changed. It's still using the same coupler. Same split coupler. Well, actually, these are slightly different. These are spring couplers. These are split couplers, so they're more rigid without the spring, which means they needed the better alignment. I'm sorry, the nuts for the rods are about the same. Oh, sorry, Big Jano 1. Yeah, something happened with Twitch. I couldn't get it to connect to both, so I just punted and said everyone come over to YouTube because that was working. Correct, Andrew. The old ones here are the spring style, the coil. These are just split. And I'm probably saying that with some latency into the chat. Those are the main differences. Let me check out the list again to make sure I didn't miss any. Again, we have the roller. We still have the filament sensor. We still have the inductive sensor for the X and the Y. And I think those are the main points in the 32-bit motherboard. So I want to classify this. I know they call it the X1 to the X2. I want to kind of classify this in classical terms. So this is more of an MK3S to an MK3S Plus type upgrade, or an MK3 to an MK3S type upgrade. I think it was an incremental upgrade. A lot of the features that they're showing were based on community feedback. Some they did on their own, such as the molded top bar, but some of the features were based on community mods and user feedback. And yes, it came with a tool bag. Over here, little tool bag. It's got your essentials in it. The wrenches that you're going to need, an extra set of ribbon cables, and a couple of extra V-slot wheels. I don't want to dump that out because they're pretty standard. But I do want to set this aside, and if you guys want, voltage select. Yep, voltage select is on the X2. It's on the back now. So you have that here. You have the power switch, and you have the IEC connection right next to it. So the original X1 didn't have a voltage switch on it. Well, it depended on the version. I think there was 4 or 5 different versions. The original ones didn't have a voltage selection switch. And the heat beds themselves, the mains heat beds, were either designed for 110 or the board screws are in there. Ah, Winky. There are a few spare screws, but there's not many. There, after assembling that, you have one T-nut and one wrench. But we'll pop it open and see what's in the bottom. Let me move this out of the way. And I'm going to slide this back into frame. Does anyone have any other questions on the differences or about the unit itself before I flip it over and check the bottom? A builder's market should be stopped. It should not be going on Twitch. Let me see if I can figure this out, but it should not be going. See if that resolves it. Very odd. Okay, so let me see if I can get through a couple of these questions here as they're asked. So multiple cores for different countries or split up on what model you buy for your location. I'm assuming that it's based on the location that you order it for, since mine came with a US-based IEC cord. And it is a grounded IEC cord. Correct, the top bar is not aluminum. Thanks, Mike, I appreciate that. The top bar is not aluminum. It is injection molded, but it is, there's an infill pattern in here. It's corrugated, I think is the word that I'm looking for. It seems as rigid as the aluminum one, or at least relatively. I mean, I don't know if you know, it would take a full joule. You know, if you set it down and try to get the full joule to stand on it, but it's going to take some substantial weight. Whoa, Filament One, thank you. Thanks for jumping in. 2021. We will be getting the Ultistik plate on here soon. Once we crack it open and take a look at the bottom. So thanks for sending that along as well. But anyway, no issues with the plastic. I guess I'll talk about the injection molding for the top brace a little bit as I grab the tools to start popping this bottom off. I want to lay it on its side here first so that I can see that and see which size I need. Should be this one. So I've discussed that a few times with different people as far as the injection molding, and I don't know if it's a cost savings for the manufacturer because those molds are not inexpensive. I have a theory though that the mold should be well, by using the injection molded piece, I think that even though it's not necessarily cheaper than the piece of aluminum that would go across there, I think that it may decrease support and quality control issues, because I've seen some manufacturers that will end up with stacks of cut aluminum because they misdrilled the hole. They misdrilled the hole for matching up with the vertical, or somebody scratched it. As well as, when you do that, you've got to get your brackets, for example, for the Z rods lined up perfectly. And by going with an injection molding piece, assuming it's a quality mold and there's no flashing or anything in it, all of your holes are in one place. It's you know, whole part fits in it, so you can't get it to the left or to the right. You can't get things really out of alignment. It does save weight, yes, but the weight really isn't critical on the top bar. I agree. QC would be, you know, would be a big thing to play into that. It would have to be a quality mold, and like I said, you know, they couldn't afford to have much flashing on it. I mean, the molding on these does seem very clean. I can only assume that in injection molding in China, where these are manufactured, is probably less expensive than having it done here, at least as far as mold. And you know, if they're going to produce 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, however many of these printers, I think they'd recover the cost of that mold pretty quickly. So I think that's, I mean, I think that's fairly insubstantial. That exactly, it's not a large load-bearing place. The biggest purpose of it is stability. And actually, by doing that corrugation that they have underneath there, that pattern, it actually may reduce vibration through the frame somewhat. Since you don't have a solid load to transmit vibrations and such, you know, I mean, it's, I don't know. I could go either way on it. Derek, you're right. They may be just testing the water. I honestly don't know what the long-term plan is. I know that they've used injection molding on the Hornet substantially. I know that they did, you know, the top bar on the Genius. So I think that was the more of the testing the waters. And as soon as I pull this screw out, this thing's going to flop on me if I'm not careful. But none were grounded. We'll take a look and see. I don't have a meter with me to measure that. I'm breaking the tamper seal here. So, whoops, there goes my warranty. So let's pop this down. And let's see if I can get that out. We'll take and set this aside. I mean, the finish on this is really good. I don't see any machining scratches or anything on these. Usually a lot of times when you order printers, you're going to find scratches and stuff on the frames and minimal damage. So let me see if I can flip this around, and I'm going to go this way. If I can do this without damaging it. You're going to lose me for a second. Let me try something here. Let's see. I'm trying to get you a view of that. That board from the overhead camera, but it's hard to do. So that is the board. It does have socketed drivers, which I find interesting. There is hot glue on all the connections, but you can see that the wiring and everything is clean. Joel already checked, and they did use tinned leads. So let me bring this down where I can see it and actually take a look at the wiring a little bit better. You may lose some visibility on that. And we'll go back to the main camera. All right, so IEC coming in, and let's take a look where our ground cables are going. That should be this cable going to the ground, and it is going to the frame right here. So there's a cable going from the IC connector to the power supply, back from the power supply back to a nut and bolt on here. And it does look like it's been, it looks like it was probably masked rather than scraped away. But it looks like it was, you know, it has a solid connection to the frame. So that is good. Being that this is metal to metal and screw to screw, that is going to provide, you know, your grounding connection up to the rods because it's metal to metal all the way through. So you don't necessarily need a separate ground wire, you know, up to the anodized aluminum. Yeah, extended warranty. Let's see, sorry, trying to catch up here. MCU, STM, NXP, or GD? Don't know the answer to that. I can't read it in this light. I will probably need to get a magnifying glass to be able to look at that later. I don't know. This is a custom board that they've developed, so I can't say if there's an original or not, but there are screws holding this board down, Andrew. There is a screw in this corner and a screw in that corner, and it looks like a stud permeating either of the other two corners. And it is going to this, there's a little plastic frame here, in another injection molded piece. You know what, let me go back to that other camera and see if I can get a little bit better shot on that. If you guys can see it, there's a metal frame here. If you think of it kind of like a hard drive caddy, I'm sorry, not a metal, a plastic frame here. So the board sits on this little plastic frame, and that's being used both as cable management as a chassis for the board. Then there's a screw in two of the corners, and then a little stud through the other two. So it's not going anywhere. How this frame is adhered, based on trying to peel it away a little bit, it looks like there's probably a stud and a screw underneath holding that down because it's not flexing much or going anywhere. So, and then there are 4 steppers. There is room for a 5th on this board. Yeah, I really, you know what? Let me try something. Come on. Unlock. Let's try this and see what we can do. Camera, photo. Rotate where I can get you. Let me pull that up. Tripod's Garage. Greetings. Whoa, Builder's Mark, thank you. It's not Tuesday, but it's close enough, and Tuesday is right around the corner. Small chip in the gantry? I don't know what you mean by the small chip in the gantry. What's the point of the small chip? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Andrew Yang. Oh, okay, Tripod's Garage answered. You're talking about not the chip, but the board, the conversion board that goes from the ribbon cable to what I talked about earlier that looks like an Atari connection. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to read it off of that with this lighting. All I can make out is the word arm. So I'm going to have to get a better picture of that with better lighting and a better camera to be able to try to tell what that is. So I will post that later on Twitch or Twitter. Twitter. So, any other questions about the inside of the bottom or the base before I plug it all back in or put the bottom back on? Anyone? Going once, going twice. The Atari connection, is that better than the ribbon connector? 1,000% better, Alex. It is a more solid connection, and it's something that is a lot harder for the user to screw up. The ribbon cables are FFC cables. They're very thin, very flexible. They bend very easy when you try to put them into the sockets. So those are already preceded in that adapter board, and which gives you a hard, solid edged PC board that snaps and mates up to the other side. So yes, it is a very good thing. Oh, just to point out something that's very interesting, actually. Let me go back to the top before I put this on quick. Let's see if that. Let me tilt this back up. And let's see if we can see it. As we noted, the voltage, the 110 220 volt connector, or switch, I'm sorry, is in the back. You notice the power supply is all the way over here. So that switch actually goes to this little box, which has cables that connect back to everything. So instead of having it on the side like most power supplies would. And you'll notice that it is a very small, very compact power supply. Simply, I don't not recognize the brand name of it, but it says CE on it. I don't believe that's European CE, just the other CE. But anyway, it only needs a small power supply because the bed is mains heated. Okay, so let me get this back on. I will flip you back to that. Plug this back in. I believe I can't tell 100%, but the drivers on this look to be TMC 2209s, and I believe that's what I was told they are, or a flavor thereof. It does look like they have adjustment potentiometers on them, and they are socketed. So my assumption is that they are not serial controlled. For the Crusty Chris fund. Thanks, Michael. Fix 'em, dude! I don't believe that the stepper drivers are serial controlled. That would have been something that would have been nice to see, because then it's adjustable in firmware. But it's really not neat. It's hard to say, because if you're using sensorless homing, it's nice to see. It's nice to see the adjustable voltage, on the drivers. Likewise, if you're building or assembling your own printer, it's nice to have that where you can do that, in software without ripping the part at the bottom. When you're buying a printer that's already built and you expect the current on those stepper drivers to be pre-adjusted at the factory for you, I don't know if I necessarily see any benefit to having a lost screw. see if I see much benefit to having a hoochie manani. Did I put this on? Nope, it's right. I don't know if I see any benefit to having a current-driven, I'm sorry, a firmware-driven stepper driver setup. Okay, I can't get it in the hole. There we go. Sorry if I'm choking over my tongue. I'm trying to read the chat, get these screws in the holes, and talk at the same time. It's not as easy as it sounds. It's kind of like riding a bike while chewing bubblegum and texting. Okay, I'm going to focus on getting it in the hole. All right, I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. We're going to go this way. These suckers do not want to start. I would love if somebody would make these screws with like a little point on them so that you could use them to try to, you know, get your hole started without cross-threading them rather than just a flat tip screw. Yeah, Mark, I need a wingman for chat. I don't have a Sean. Okay. Especially when I can't see the holes, it's even harder. All right. Oh, Glendon, I appreciate that. Thank you. Tacos will be coming shortly. It is the weekend, which means Choco Tacos this weekend, if they are back in stock anywhere. So thank you very much. Okay. I feel like I'm missing a screw. There's one here. What's the rule? If you either have to be missing parts or have leftovers when you get done? Is that how it works? Oh, and I see the leftover screw. One more. Just need to get it started. There we go. Okay. They are all started. Now I can lift it back up and not have to hold it. And now we can tighten it back down. All missing a few screws, especially in this crowd, right? Less screws equals less weight, yeah. Let's see. All right, we are assembled. Uh-oh. Okay. There was an upgrade I forgot to mention. Because it fell off at me, just to make the point. The fan ducts are now also injection molded. So I'm going to need to glue that back on. Looks like they're just loosely held on with super glue that I knocked off during that that debacle. So, what do you think? You guys want to open the Ultistik and put that on? Should we do that, or should we wrap up soon if nobody has any other questions? I've got them right here. There we go. So there's the Ultistik plate. And it is a perfect fit for that. The Ultistik ships in these envelopes, and this is the magnet that goes with it. Ultistik is expanding where you can pick them up recently, as well as their availability. It used to be you could only get them from... Oh, Shane's here. There goes the crowd. Kill the stream. Just kidding. It used to be that you could only get the Ultistik product line through Filament One. They now have a couple of resellers in Europe. You can pick them up on Amazon. I think there's a Canadian distributor now, and a few others out there. But so here's our magnet sheet, and here's our plate. Oops. And it does a good job of pulling it all over the place. So let me grab some IPA and a scraper and some paper towels, and we can put this thing on quick, and hopefully I will not screw up putting on the magnet like I usually do. Let's see here. Okay, I'm walking in front of the camera. Paper towels. Check. Magic scraper. And you can hear me, but you can't see me. Where is the IPA? Where, oh where has my IPA gone? Oh where can it be? We have Swan, 70% IPA. So let's do this. So since I've already printed on this, I want to hit it with a scraper just to make sure that there's no residual pieces of, PLA or anything else stuck on the glass in any of these tracks that have gotten left behind. That way we have a flat surface to go on. Yes, I can share a link. You know what? There is a description to Filament One in the video description, and it's not directly to this product, but I can add that for you. But in the video description, there is a link to Filament One. There's also a discount code on there that would get you 5% off anything that you purchase over there. Not just the Ultistik plates, but anything in their product line. So you're welcome to use that if you would like. It's not a huge savings, but it helps cover tax and such. So, but let's see. I can try to append a link later. There we go. Ultistik.com. Thank you, Shane. I'm just going to lather that up with IPA. Lots and lots of IPA. And Shane lives to serve. Or does he serve to live? There is a fine line there. Let's see. All right. I think that's clean. So, the part that I hate doing most is putting on these magnet sheets. It is, for me, it's about as bad as trying to put on, put a screen protector on a phone or an iPad. One thing that's nice is these are cut fairly close to. You guys want to go to the overhead cam? Let me see if that. Does he get you a view of what I'm doing here? Or maybe if I turn that sideways and gives you a little bit better view. I pull that out. There we go. Sorry, you can't see me on that view, but you can see the top. These are cut almost precisely to the shape of the bed, which is very nice, and it makes it easier to help get them on and started. But there is a little bit, probably a collective 1 millimeter on every side. So you can always trim it with a razor knife if you miss anywhere. And let's last time I put a screen protector on anything, the year was 2000. Tanner3D, you've been busy, man. We haven't seen any trucks out of you in a while, so it sounds like that play is keeping you really busy. All right, so I'm just trying to get the back as close as I can. This magnet looks very thin, but it is rated for higher temperatures. All right, so that is on the back, and just going to try to make sure that we smooth it down, because I hate getting bubbles in these things. Thin is good. Thin means that you lose less Z, right? But thin is only good if it's strong enough to hold. So that's the key right there. Looks like I am slightly off on one side, but it's not going to make a difference. Looks like I overshot this way just a tiny bit, but that's okay. Because I can always go back with the razor knife, and anything that sticks over the edge, I can trim it up. Musician shortage in Nashville. Those are like two words that I never thought I would hear together. That's like saying there's a blues shortage in New Orleans. But I'm glad that's working out for you. All right. So, it is a slightly off. I missed the corner there a little bit because I legit stink at putting this on, but I did not get any air bubbles in there. So that's good. So I can go through here, and because it's thin, I can crinkle the paper, miss the trash can, reach in my drawer for a razor knife like so. You can't see me, that's right. And I can just go like this around the edge and trim that up. Now the only reason I even care about trimming it up, I mean, it's not going to hurt it to have it hanging over it all, but I don't want dust and dirt to accumulate in the adhesive underneath there or give it any reason to peel off, you know, if it catches on something. 12 new stages opened up a couple months ago, and that was the tipping point. Wow, that's insane. I'm glad that's working out good, dude. All right, so trimmed up like so. Now, before I heat this, they do recommend for most of these usually to leave it overnight for the adhesive to settle before you start heating it. But we can't put the plate on. And we've now just put the best print surface known to man, or at least known to me, onto the X1. So there we have it. I would love to see Artillery and Ultistik come up with a deal, or come up with some sort of partnership so that these came stock on every X1. One thing I might print that I've done for other printers here is I always have a hard time, and it's not crucial, but I've always have a hard time getting the back corners lined up. And on other printers, I've just printed little L brackets that would kind of, you know, attach or glue onto the back corner that I can just slide the bed up against. Kind of like how the Prusa has the two screws that you just hit those screws and it flops down into place. But there we have it. All done. I just need to super glue that back on and it will be good to go. And clean the gunk off my knife. Put the knife away. Put the message in the box. You tried the Ultistik on your Mini, but it didn't adhere well. You clean them or season them or anything usually? Usually would recommend it to wash them in dish soap. Just hot water and dish soap. And then clean them with IPA. Just to get any manufacturing oils or shipping oils off of them. Other than that, I do use, it's not necessarily needed, but I do use Magigoo on top of the Ultistik sometimes, not to improve the adhesive of the, not to improve the adhesiveness of the Ultim stick, but rather to provide a separation layer for things like PETGs or nylons that can actually stick too good to it. Let me see if I can switch over there. See if that gets you a little more comfortable view. So we can chat and try to read the text here, and you can still stare at the pretty old printer. So good luck. I hope that helps. I believe that worked for Katja. She had similar problems on a Prusa one, and she, I think, made the mistake of trying to clean it with what's the word? Nail polish remover. I can't think of the chemical in it. The acetone. There we go. Never use acetone on any of the Ultim beds. It will cause hate, discontent, and havoc. But does anybody have any other questions on the X2? Or should we wrap up about now? It's probably in the low 90s in my garage right now, so you can tell by the sweat glistening off of me here. Don't mind wrapping if you all are ready, or if you have any other questions. No, Shane, it does not transform, but it is a 300 by 300 by 400 build area that you could print some large transformers. Okay, does anybody but Shane have questions? First print. Let me see. I'll show you the prints that I've pulled off of it. I haven't, to be honest, I had this for about 2 weeks before the announcement. Obviously wasn't allowed to share or show off anything. But I, unfortunately, with work commitments, I was only able to get a couple of things done. So the first thing printed, let's see if I can hold it up here to this guy for you. First thing printed was just a simple little vase in atomic candy apple red. And no, Michael, I cannot go through the whole thing again just for you. I can be happy to do that for you offline. Let's see. I then did a 300% scale version of the Tiki Cat that Luby modeled for me earlier in July for my birthday. Okay. Sorry, Reese, I didn't see your question. I missed it somewhere. So, oh wait. Is the update worth making from X1 to X2? Also taking the other option of upgrading to all your original Titan extruder assembly. Okay, I'll answer that in just a second for you after I share just the last one. So I expect to see a bigger one from Joel, but that is the 300 millimeter tall Tiki cup. He is doing a 350 millimeter Tiki cup. So he's going bigger and in blue. So he wins already just because it's blue. All right. So Reese, to answer your question on Vert Hobbies, I don't know the max speed yet. Haven't had enough print time with it to determine that. Right now I'm just using a very rough profile, the built-in one, to using the built-in profile and Prusa slicer for the X1 for it, and I haven't really had the opportunity to tune it in further yet to get anywhere near the speeds and feeds. It should be very similar to what the X1 did. This goes to Reese's question. There are no improvements to this that will make it print better than the X1 did, other than possibly the 32-bit board. Need to close up to see quality. Everything looks good from 5 to 10 feet away. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't get you that close on these guys. I mean, this is that's about the closest I can get you on there, and I don't know how well it's going to focus. If you don't have the printer, if you don't have an X1 already, the price difference between the X2 and the X1, it is worth it to buy the X2 for the updates and the improvements that they've made to it. If you already have an X1, chances are that you've probably already printed out a lot of the improvements that have gone into this, or could print out your own improvements that go into this. So I wouldn't necessarily throw away your X1 and buy an X2. But if you don't have either, I mean, I think it's a good way to go if you're looking at the X1 as a platform that you want. I'm not calling any kind of review on this yet because I don't have the print time with it. So I will say, for me, the X1 was a stellar machine. I've had mine a long time, and to be fair, I've done a lot of upgrades, and it has turned into, over the years, my X1 has turned into my test bed printer, because the way that the hot end assembly works, the way that the hot end and the extruder cart works, it makes it very easy to build custom parts on there for testing. Like I said, my X1 has a experimental hot end that I'm beta testing on it right now, so it was really easy for me to drop that in. So top left not level. Top left not level. Top left. All of that said, I mean, if the X2 performs as well as the X1, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, it's a good printer to add to your arsenal, or to at least consider if you need something that size. To me, the only unknown on the X2 over the X1 is the new 32-bit board. It is a self-designed board. It's not like they went out and bought an off-the-shelf MKS board or something to put in there. They did design their own board. So that needs to be proven out, in my opinion, But it may be the same board that's in the Hornet, which has proven to be stable. If that's the case, and I don't know the answer to that, but if it is the same board that's in the Hornet, X2 is definitely going to be a contender. They will be releasing the firmware by the... the X1 board wasn't great. I agree with you, Lightspeed. The X1 board wasn't great, but it was a generic MKS 8-bit board. And it had, I think, 2201 separate drivers on it originally. I don't recall exactly, or maybe 2150. Either way, that's potentially the biggest improvement, is the 32-bit board on this. And it does take generic Marlin, so you can drop in your own flavors of Marlin. Compared to other large billion volt, Glendon, honestly, it's hard to make. It's hard to say. Quality-wise, it is, from a physical quality-wise, it's on par with the Creality or any of the other ones. In all honesty, the frame design and everything is not novel. It's the same bed slinger platform as anything else. The quality control out of Artillery has generally been better, and they tend to listen to direct user feedback better than we've seen out of some other companies. It is very easily upgradable and modifiable, but you don't necessarily have to. It will work, out of the box. It does take off-the-shelf E3D nozzles, so you don't need to go hunting down special nozzles for it, like you do, for example, with a Creality hot end, although those are pretty common now. The X1 did have lots of Z-banding. Well, I'll rephrase that. Some people had a lot of Z-banding with the X1. Other people didn't have any problems. It seemed to be very hit and miss, and one of those things where, like, luck of the draw. I think these injection molded, aka cast carriages that we looked at earlier on here, I think those are going to make a huge improvement on Z-Wobble, just because they're solid. There's a lot less flexibility. You don't have the curve of the metal on the bends like you did with the other ones, and so I think, you know, they are improvements. But Reese, hopefully I answered your question. It ended up long form, but hopefully I answered it. Excuse me. I would, if you have an X1 and you're happy with it, I wouldn't go dropping money on an X2 unless you want a second printer. It's not worth selling your X1 to get an X2. If you don't have a printer, the X2 is going to be a viable contender to look at. So, yeah, Stephen, I also am not a huge fan of the TFT that streams the G-code. It's, again, that's one of those things that's hit or miss, but I don't think it's any worse than any of the other solutions that Creality or anybody else is using with their TFTs. They're still running a separate processor and streaming the G-code. So that's about it. All right, any last questions? It's 7:49 my time, and I don't know how much more of this heat I can take in here, so I'm about ready to wrap if you guys are. All right. 3:49 a.m. there. It sounds like you need to get to bed. All right, I think with that we'll call it a night. Sorry it didn't work out on Twitch. We'll try to do that again next time to see if we can get it either working on both. My plan is to transition live streaming over to Twitch and to keep YouTube just for pre-produced video content. And Twitch is much better. It's got a lot less latency. It's a much better platform for interacting with your audience and having these kind of Q&A sessions than YouTube. So ultimately, that's the goal in in the end, and we'll hopefully we'll get there. With that, I will see you all next time. Aloha.